The desert sun sank low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire and the land in shadows of rust. Copper Creek sat at its center, a tired little town that looked more like it was holding on than truly living. Its wooden buildings sagged, beaten by years of wind and dust. The general store leaned like it was tired of standing. The blacksmith's hammer rang out in dull rhythm, and the saloon at the town's heart waited like a thirsty beast for men to stumble in and spend what little they had. Jake Sullivan guided his horse down the main street with the heavy steps of a man who had known too many hard trails. At 42, his face carried the scars of a life without mercy. A deep gash across his cheek told of battles past, and lines carved by sun and sorrow framed eyes as cold and pale as a winter sky. His coat was covered in dust, his boots worn, his spurs jangling in rhythm with each step. He had long ago learned not to expect kindness in towns like this. The Broken Wheel Saloon called to him with its crooked signs swaying in the evening wind. He tied his horse outside, stepped through the doors, and walked into a cloud of smoke and sweat. Laughter rose and fell from tables where men drank too much and gambled too little. The barkeep, Tom, a man built like a wall, nodded at him without words. Jake returned the nod and ordered whiskey, his voice low and scratchy from the trail. The glass was halfway to his lips when the saloon door swung wide. The laughter died in an instant. Heads turned, voices hushed, and all eyes landed on the figure in the doorway. She looked like a ghost that had wandered in from the desert itself. Her dress had once been fine, but was now faded to a weary gray, torn at the hem, dust clinging to every thread. Her dark hair was tangled, her face pale beneath the dirt and travel, but her eyes, those wide, haunted eyes, burned with both fear and defiance. She could not have been more than 25, but life had aged her with invisible years. A voice broke the silence. Bill Hawkins, a local troublemaker with a cruel grin, leaned back in his chair. "Well, look what the wind blew in. You lost, sweetheart? Or maybe you're just looking for work." The woman lifted her chin, though her body swayed as if her strength was about to give out. Her voice was faint, cracked from thirst. "I need food. And water. I'll work for it." Hawkins laughed, his pockmarked face stretching into something ugly. "Oh, I bet you can work. Question is, what kind of work you're offering?" His buddies chuckled darkly, pushing back their chairs to rise. She clutched the doorframe, steadying herself, but did not back down. "Please," she said, her voice shaking. "Just food. Water." From behind the bar, Tom's voice came like a growl. "We don't serve your kind here. Not in this place." The woman gave a hollow laugh, sharp and broken. "Respectable?" In a place like this, Hawkins stepped forward, his hand brushing the gun at his side. "You heard the man. Time for you to leave. Unless, of course, you'd like us to show you out." Jake's glass sat untouched on the bar. His jaw tightened. He had told himself 1,000 times not to care anymore, not to get involved. But there was something in her eyes that he couldn't turn from. Fear wrapped in iron, dignity clinging to her even as her body trembled. He pushed his chair back slowly. His voice cut across the saloon, sharp as a blade. "The lady asked for food and water, not your insults." Every head swiveled toward him. Hawkins' face darkened, his hand twitching near his pistol. "This ain't your fight, Sullivan. Stay out of it." Jake rose to his full height, setting the glass down without drinking, his gray eyes locked onto Hawkins. "Made it my fight, the moment you and your boys decided to circle a starving woman like wolves. That, how you prove you're men now? 3 against 1. The saloon held its breath. Jake's name carried weight in towns like these. He wasn't known as the fastest gun, but as the man who didn't back down once he stood. Hawkins sneered. "She's just another drifter. Ain't worth your time." Jake's voice dropped low, dangerous. "Finish that thought, Bill. Go on." I'm curious what gives you the right to decide her worth." Hawkins hesitated, his fingers drumming on his belt. He had numbers, but he also knew Jake Sullivan's kind. Men who didn't bluff. Finally, he spat on the floor. "You'll regret this. You just bought yourself a heap of trouble." Jake turned away from him, his focus on the woman. "There's a boarding house 2 streets over. Ma Foster runs it clean. Tell her Jake Sullivan sent you." "I'll cover the cost." The woman blinked, suspicion and hope fighting in her face. "Why?" "Because someone should have done it for me once," Jake said simply. She hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." Hawkins's voice followed them as Jake guided her toward the door. "This ain't over, Sullivan." Quote. Outside, the evening air was cool, the street quiet. The woman staggered, and Jake caught her elbow. "When's the last time you ate?" 3 days. "Maybe 4. Her words were a whisper edged with shame. He cursed under his breath. "Come on. Let's get you to Ma Foster's before you fall over." As they walked down the dusty street, Jake felt the weight of his choice settle heavy on his shoulders. He had broken his rule. Don't get involved. Don't care. Don't invite trouble. Trouble already had a way of finding him. But as he glanced at the frail woman leaning against him, he knew this was no accident. Something about her had stirred a part of him long buried. She stopped suddenly, looking up at him with wide eyes. "I'm Clara," she said, her voice trembling. "Clara Morrison. I thought you should know. In case." Her words trailed off, but Jake didn't press. He only tightened his grip on her arm, guiding her toward the faint glow of the boarding house windows. He didn't know yet what kind of storm had walked into his life that night, only that it had a name, Clara Morrison, and eyes that haunted him already. The night wind howled across the desert, carrying with it the scent of sage and dust. Jake Sullivan sat by his small fire outside town, his back against a rock, eyes fixed on the flames. He told himself it was just another night, just another stranger passing through Copper Creek. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the memory of Clara Morrison's eyes. He was reaching for his flask when he heard the sound, hesitant footsteps crunching against the dirt. His hand went to his Colt, but when the firelight caught the figure stepping out of the shadows, he froze. It was Clara. She stood just at the edge of the light, wrapped in nothing but his old coat. Her tattered dress was gone, folded under her arm. Her bare shoulders glowed in the fire's orange flicker, her skin pale against the night. "I couldn't stay," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "Not in that house. Not with strangers." Jake rose slowly. "You had a bed. Food. Safety." "I don't want safety if it means hiding," she whispered, stepping closer. Her eyes glistened, her lips tight. "I've been running for so long, I don't know who I am anymore. But with you, for the first time, I don't feel invisible." She came to the fire, and the coat slipped slightly, revealing more of her than she likely intended. She caught his eyes on her and lifted her chin. "I'm naked," she confessed. Her words cut the air like a knife. "Not just my body, my soul. I have nothing left, Jake. No family, no money, not even pride. If you're going to turn me away, do it now." Jake's breath caught. His chest ached with something he hadn't felt in years. He stepped forward, his rough hand lifting the coat higher around her shoulders, his touch careful, almost reverent. "You're not nothing, Clara," he said quietly. "You're alive. That's more than most can claim out here." Tears brimmed in her eyes. Alive doesn't feel like enough. Her knees buckled, and before she could fall, Jake scooped her up, lifting her against his chest. For a moment, the fire popped and hissed. The desert whispered, and the world narrowed to only them. Her head rested against him, her breath warm through his shirt. He carried her to the blanket, laid out near the fire, and set her gently down. She clutched his arm, her fingers trembling. "Don't leave me, Jake. Please." His throat tightened. He had buried a wife, a daughter, and too many friends to count. He had sworn never to let anyone close again. Yet here was this broken, stubborn woman, bearing herself in every way that mattered, and he couldn't walk away. "I'm not leaving," he said, his voice rough as gravel. "Not tonight, not while you need me." They sat together by the fire, the coat around her, his arm around her shoulders. Clara's voice wavered as she told him pieces of her past, a husband dead from fever, a brother-in-law who had taken everything, whispers of lies that had forced her to run. Jake listened, each word carving something deeper in his chest. She was hunted, desperate, but still standing. "You're stronger than you think," he told her. She looked up at him, firelight dancing in her wet eyes. "Then why do I feel so weak?" "Because strength isn't about not breaking," Jake said. "It's about breaking and still finding the will to stand." Silence fell. Only the crackle of the fire and the desert wind filled the space. Then Clara leaned against him, her voice barely a whisper. "With you, I feel like I can stand again." Jake pulled her closer, his jaw tightening with the storm of feelings inside him. He had spent years surviving without purpose. But tonight, holding Clara Morrison, he realized survival wasn't enough anymore. Somewhere beyond the firelight, a coyote howled, its cry cutting through the night like a warning. Trouble would come. He could feel it in his bones. Hawkins wouldn't forget the insult, and whoever Clara was running from would find their trail. But for now, in that circle of firelight, Jake held her as if she were the only thing keeping him tethered to life. And maybe she was. The morning sun spilled gold across the desert, but Copper Creek woke under the shadow of trouble. Jake Sullivan knew it the moment he saw the riders on the ridge. 3 bounty men, their eyes sharp and hungry, with Bill Hawkins riding beside them like a jackal waiting for scraps. Clara stood behind Jake, clutching his coat tighter around her shoulders, her face pale but steady. "They're here for me," she whispered. Jake checked the rifle in his hands. "Number. They're here for both of us now." The men rode down slow, savoring the moment. Hawkins grinned, the scar on his cheek splitting wide. "Mornin', Sullivan. That stray you took in, she's got a price on her head. $500 says we take her back to Kansas. Step aside, and maybe we let you walk." Clara trembled, but Jake stood firm, his voice calm and even. "She's no thief, no murderer, just a woman trying to live." The lead bounty hunter spat in the dirt. "Law says different." "And law, don't care what you believe," Jake's eyes narrowed. "Then maybe the law's got it wrong." What followed was thunder and fire. The bounty hunters drew, but Jake was faster, his rifle cracking, forcing them to scatter. Hawkins cursed, returning fire as bullets screamed off rocks. Clara ducked low behind a boulder, her hands pressed to her ears, but her eyes never left Jake. He moved with the calm of a man who'd seen too many battles, each shot measured, each step deliberate. Still, it was 6 guns against 1, and Jake knew the odds were bad. His shoulder burned from a grazing shot, but he gritted his teeth and kept firing. Then Clara's voice rang out sharp as a whip. "Jake! Left!" He spun, saw a bounty hunter creeping close, pistol raised. Jake's shot dropped the man before he could pull the trigger. Clara grabbed a rock and hurled it with all her strength, striking another rider hard enough to knock him from the saddle. Jake couldn't help but smile grimly. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was fighting. The fight raged until dust clouded the air and horses screamed. Then, just as Jake thought it might end with both of them cut down, the sound of more rifles split the chaos. From the ridge above, Tom Garrett, Jake's old ranger friend, rode in with 2 men at his side, rifles trained true enough. Tom's voice boomed, "Back off, or you'll be buzzard feed before noon." The tide turned fast. The bounty hunters, now outnumbered, pulled back, dragging their wounded with them. Hawkins glared at Jake, his face twisted with hate. "This ain't over, Sullivan. You and your whore are dead men riding." Jake stepped forward, his revolver steady. "Call her that again, and you won't ride anywhere." For a moment, Hawkins's hand twitched near his gun, but the steel in Jake's eyes froze him. With a snarl, he turned his horse and rode off, the others following. Dust swallowed them as quickly as they'd come. Silence returned to the desert, broken only by Clara's shaking breath. Jake lowered his rifle and walked back to her. She was trembling, her face streaked with dust and fear, but when he reached for her, she didn't flinch. Instead, she pressed herself against him, her words muffled against his chest. "You nearly died for me." Jake rested his hand on the back of her head, his voice low. "I'd do it again." Every damn time, her eyes lifted to his, shining with tears. "Why? Why risk everything for me?" For a moment, Jake struggled for words. Then he cupped her face, thumb brushing the dirt from her cheek. "Because you're worth it. Because somewhere along the trail, you stopped being just another lost soul. You became mine to protect. And I won't let the world take you." Clara's lips parted, her voice breaking Jake. "I don't have anything left to give. You've already given me more than you know," he whispered. "You gave me a reason to live again." The words hung between them, raw and unpolished, yet truer than anything he'd said in years. Slowly, she leaned into him, her lips brushing his, soft and uncertain at first, then full of the fire and fear they'd both carried for too long. In that kiss, under the vast desert sky, two broken lives found a reason to keep going. When they finally pulled apart, Clara rested her forehead against his. "Where do we go now?" Jake glanced at the horizon, where the mountains rose like silent guardians west. "As far as it takes. We'll find a place where their reach can't follow." Clara nodded, slipping her hand into his. For the first time, there was no fear in her eyes, only hope. Together, they mounted his horse, the desert stretching wide before them. Behind lay shadows, lies, and men who would not stop hunting. But ahead lay the promise of freedom, of love found in the unlikeliest place. Jake tightened his arm around Clara's waist as the horse carried them forward. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that he would face it with her. And for a man who had once been hollow, that was more than enough. The desert wind rose, carrying them into the unknown, two hearts bound together against the wild. The end.